Hi, I'm Carrie Watkins. I'm an associate professor in civil and environmental engineering at Georgia Tech. And my segment of the program today is to talk to you about transit ridership pre and post pandemic. The thing that it's important to think about when we're talking about post pandemic transit planning is that pre pandemic, we were already having a lot of transit ridership declines in the US. Bus ridership, when we look since 2012, was experiencing a decline of about 12 to 18%. And there was an even greater decline since the peak of ridership, which happened around 2005, 2006. And the thing that's a bit concerning is that on the rail ridership side, we had really been seeing increases through the years that were quite substantial up until 2014. And then we hit a peak. And since then, even rail ridership had been declining 4 to 6%. This was all pre-COVID. Now, the thing that's most concerning about this is that these changes were not being seen in other countries in the same way they were in the US. The US is not alone in their losses, but most of the countries that had similar losses in ridership had some sort of substantial change in demographics. Either poor economic conditions, substantial population changes. Most of the countries that had increases in employment and population, like the US, we're seeing substantial increases in transit ridership. So to understand this better, my lab group at Georgia Tech and a bunch of our partners at other universities have been doing a number of different studies for different university transportation centers, for different transit agencies, and for the Transit Cooperative Research Program. I'm going to talk about the results of the TCRP A43 right now. This is the recent decline in public transportation ridership analysis, causes, and responses, because I think it's most relevant to the conversation about COVID ridership. The thing is, we did a study looking across the US at different regions. So bringing transit agencies from a region together and looking sort of across. So almost think of it as a city by city basis. What was happening in Atlanta, what was happening in Dallas, what was happening in Seattle. And we looked at both transit service provided, as well as a bunch of different US Census data, as well as other data sources that we could find. And we looked at changes in transit ridership from 2012 to 2018. And by doing this sort of cross time and cross city analysis, we could actually pick out what was it that was causing transit ridership to increase over those 6 years, and what was causing transit ridership to decrease over that 6-year period. Again, this is 2012 through 2018, so we're talking pre-COVID transit ridership gains and losses. And there were two things that were causing net increases in transit ridership. The first was more service. On average, in those years, agencies were increasing their service, and that was resulting in more ridership. Service increases were bigger on rail than on bus, and so ridership increases were bigger on rail than on bus. We see things on the order of 12 to 22% on the rail side, 6 to 7% on the bus side. At the same time, metro areas were growing in population, growing in employment over this period, and that was increasing transit ridership. However, they were becoming slightly less centralized, which partially offset those gains. So our land use changes in the US only resulted in 2 to 3% more ridership in bus and rail. We also looked at what was causing ridership over these 6 years to decline, and there were 4 factors. So we've got 2 on the positive side competing with a lot of things on the negative side. The first of those is income and household characteristics. Over this time period, median incomes were increasing, car ownership was increasing, and more people were working at home. And all 3 of these things combined resulted in 3 to 4% less bus and rail ridership. At the same time, transit travel is becoming more expensive. After adjusting for inflation, fares were going up. They were higher in 2018 than for most metro areas in 2012. There were bigger fare increases on rail, and so we see ridership declining more on the rail side, but on the order of 0 to 4% on bus, 2 to 5% on rail. We had two more factors that were also contributing to this. At the same time that transit was becoming more expensive, driving was becoming less expensive. After adjusting for inflation, average gas prices have declined, and this was decreasing bus and rail ridership on the order of 4 to 5%. And the big hitter is new modes. We actually looked at bike share, e-scooters. Because those are more recent additions, it's harder, but we didn't actually see any negative effects. It was statistically insignificant. But as a result of ride hailing, we saw 9 to 13% less bus ridership and 4 to 14% less rail ridership. So overall, these are measurable declines in ridership. So what does this mean for COVID? Now we're looking at the effect of COVID and the short-term impacts we can see already, right? It's been many months of us looking at what the short-term impacts are. These are some graphics showing my local agency, MARTA, which is pretty typical of larger cities that have both bus and rail ridership. We saw a significant drop in rail ridership. Rail is at 40% of what it once was. We saw a drop in bus, and with MARTA, they were not collecting fares for a while. So that's this increase that you see here, where really on the bus side, they were almost 70 to 80% of what they were pre-COVID. And then as they started collecting fares, then it dropped, but it's still at about 60% of the rates that they were seeing pre-COVID. But what does this mean long-term? At the moment, people are really fearful of being on transit. Agencies are doing a lot of things that you'll hear about throughout, or that you've heard about throughout the program, to try to increase that comfort and to try to actually keep people safer. But what does it mean in the long term? There's lots of people doing surveys and studies to try to understand the long-term impacts. But if we even just look at what was happening pre-COVID, we can see what some of the impacts of ridership might be. Telecommute. Telecommute is only going to increase now that we know how to use these kinds of tools. And we were seeing previous declines in transit ridership as a result, so those could just increase. Declining population density. If we see the effects of that, that could have immense impacts on transit ridership. Low gas prices. If gas prices continue to stay low the way they've been during the pandemic, then that's also going to severely impact transit ridership as well. Higher fares. If agencies, in order to survive, have to raise fares for the service they're putting out there, there's going to be ridership impacts as a result. But new modes, the thing that was hitting transit the most pre-COVID was actually the TNCs. And we really don't know what the impact of those are going to be. So there's a lot of research that's ongoing, including at Georgia Tech, in partnership with some other universities, the University of Kentucky, BYU, and the University of Tennessee. We have a new 18-month, $1 million USDOT University Transportation Center called T-Score, Transit Serving Communities Optimally, Responsibly, and Efficiently. And the goal of T-Score is for us to look at several different possible strategies, trying to understand how those different strategies can be used for transit agencies to bounce back post-COVID. So if you're interested, please get in touch. My Twitter handle and my email address are shown on the screen. Thank you.